If you're looking to hit that wildcard button in game week 11, don't worry, I've got you covered with the ultimate team in today's video. And starting off our game week 11 wildcard, we have gone for the goalkeeper pairing of Turner and Areola. Now, the reason that we've done this is I do personally believe these arguably are still the two most reasonable goalkeepers in the game right now that you can get for that bargain bottom price. Obviously, Turner 4.2, Areola at 4.3. Now, there is question marks around Turner maybe losing his place in the first team squad after an absolute howler against Liverpool. Obviously, let Mo Salah in, completely missed the ball. I'm not 100% sure what he was trying to do with this, so there is question marks about him potentially losing his place after that kind of awful performance against Liverpool. And West Ham defensively, they're not really there for the data in terms of XG conceded, clean sheet wise as well, and overall performance wise. Again, they haven't really been there, but they are facing some of the lesser kind of sides in the Premier League coming up. Brentford, not really one of those, but Nottingham Forest, Burnley, Crystal Palace, Fulham, Wolves, all within the next kind of 6 to 7 game weeks. So I do think for 4.2 million, a very safe and kind of reliable goalkeeper that's going to be playing games. And if you weren't 100% sure on Turner, you could easily go for Fabianski as he's down to 4.3 or 4.2. So at least that way you would have kind of the West Ham 2 goalkeepers covered off. So you're always going to have a playing goalkeeper. I don't personally think it is worth going for more expensive goalkeepers at the moment. What this allows you to do is build such a stronger outfield side as well. So I definitely think going for these 2 goalkeeper cheap options is the way forward in my personal opinion. But I wouldn't be overly kind of expecting too many points from them in the kind of next kind of weeks. You'd hope Areola would get some clean sheets, but again, I wouldn't be over kind of optimistic with West Ham's kind of defensive record so far. Moving into the backline, we are going to start off with Saliba. Now, if Gabriel did play at the weekend, he would be in this team, but unfortunately has seen himself dropped and rotated again. Arteta, the man's playing absolute mind games with us with Gabriel. We had him from the start in game week 1, 2 and 3. We thought game week 10, this is it. The Arsenal fixtures are looking pretty decent in kind of the next 5-6 weeks. They've got some really good underlying defensive data. Started the season super strong as well. And then he goes and drops him. So we've gone for William Saliba because he seems like he is the one who is going to be playing most weeks over Gabriel. So it gets it in there. He is a little bit pricey at 5.2 million. But I think what this allows us to do is kind of have a placeholder for when more attacking players, you know, like Chelsea's fixtures turn in game week 16. Maybe Reece James is back at that point. Maybe we want to go for someone like Colwell or maybe even Ben Chilwell at that point if both of them are back and kind of playing, with Chelsea's fixtures potentially turning. You know, you've also got people like Luke Shaw back in November. So what I think it does is it allows you to kind of solidify a nice price point in the defence for when these more attacking and better defensive assets do become available. You are able to switch. But there's some really nice fixtures coming up for Arsenal. Burnley, Wolves, Luton, some really solid players, fixtures that you can get in there, hopefully with some clean sheets as well for Saliba. And like I said, when those more attacking players come back from injury, I definitely think having that more expensive defender makes it so much easier to kind of get them in the team rather than kind of having to jiggle around. But that's my personal opinion. Moving on to one of the kind of cheap and reliable defenders over the past few weeks, it is Tsimikas, with obviously the injury to Andy Robertson. Has played the last 2 Premier League games, kept 2 clean sheets as well. Luton up next, you would be expecting a third one for them there. The fixtures in kind of the long term, little bit good, little bit bad. You've got Brentford, who we saw what they were capable of at the weekend. Manchester City as well, a very strong unit. I wouldn't arguably be playing Tsimikas in that game week. But then you've got Fulham, Sheffield United, Crystal Palace and Manchester United. Probably games where I would be playing Tsimikas. So I think in the longer term, he does make a lot of sense. Some really good fixtures, some really good attacking fixtures from him as well. Has been dabbling in corners as well. So maybe a chance of an assist. Not too much in terms of open play expected data, but maybe from a set piece we could see some strong fixtures as well. So you would be banking on Liverpool potentially getting a clean sheet and at least 1, 2, maybe even 3 of those fixtures. Moving on to our third defender, and it is Matty Cash. Aston Villa's fixtures are pretty nice for the next kind of 4 game weeks. Nottingham Forest, Fulham, Tottenham, Bournemouth. The Tottenham one a little bit iffy, but the side that Villa are at the moment, they are absolutely cruising. And again, Matty Cash does feel like one of those players when in game week 15-16, Aston Villa's fixtures do take a turn, we can easily get off him for one of these more attacking defenders, maybe Astupinian. Like I said, Shaw, Chilwell, Reece James, when these players do come available, I think that is what makes sense to have these pricier players in at the moment, because we can switch when the other players do have good fixtures coming up. But Matty Cash as well, I think it's just been astounding, hasn't he, to be honest. Should have got himself an assist at the weekend, played a lovely ball for Ollie Watkins, would have been a clean sheet as well, so would have been a mega double point haul for him. Arguably his 3rd or 4th of the season as well, so, you know, a really, really solid defender, definitely justifying his price point for me at the moment. And with good fixtures for the next 4 coming up for Aston Villa, I definitely think a player you should be considering in your game week 11 wildcard. Moving on to one of my personal picks, and it is Mark Gahey. Now, Crystal Palace's fixtures for the next kind of 5 game weeks are very decent from a defensive perspective. Arguably, Crystal Palace attacking wise, they're not quite there. We saw that against Spurs. I know they scored eventually, but it was a little bit of an iffy, dodgy, potential handball goal, but we won't talk about that too much. But yeah, attacking wise, not really there. They're missing the key boys, aren't they? They're missing, obviously, the Eze and the Elise. No real striker to talk about as well. Odsonne Edouard started the season okay, but nothing really to write home about, to be honest. But Mark Gahey and potentially Anderson would be the players that I would be looking for. You're looking at Burnley, Everton, Luton, West Ham, Bournemouth. A great run of fixtures for Crystal Palace. I've gone Mark Gahey. I think he's justifying his price. I think he's at 4.6, 4.7 now. And he's definitely justifying his price. There's not too much to split him and Anderson. I think Anderson has picked up a few more attacking returns so far this season. But from open play and kind of data perspectives, again, there isn't too much to split them. So I think going for Mark Gahey, you know, is a little bit cheaper. So I think that just makes a little bit more sense in my head. So that was the back line. Let's move on into the midfield. We're going to start off with Mitoma, a very popular asset so far this season and last season as well for large parts of the campaign. And there's very good reason for that, because he's a brilliant player and we absolutely love to watch him. Everton, Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea, Brentford and Burnley coming up for Brighton. And arguably you could see them winning quite a lot of those games. Did look a little bit fatigued after the European win over Ajax, but obviously no Carabao Cup this week, so a full week off. And Mitoma also didn't go on international duty a few game weeks ago with Japan, so has had a full kind of 10-day rest there. Going to get the full midweek off this week as well, so you would expect him to start that Everton game. Has only been benched for 1 Premier League game so far this season, and even in that game did come off the bench and get himself a goal and an assist. So even off the bench, proving a vital asset for Brighton this year. And with some other key players, you know, like the Danny Welbecks, the Marches, these more senior figures within the side, I definitely think Mitoma is kind of urging himself into De Zerbi's plans as kind of their key go-to man when they do need him. So definitely a player I would be looking at. If you wanted to go for a potential cheaper option, I think Adinga would be the one. With the injuries kind of mounting up on that right-hand side, I think he's nailed for the next few game weeks. Moving on to our second midfielder, and we're going to start off with Son. Obviously, the fixtures for Spurs are starting to fade away a little bit. No longer are they nice and decent, but you know what? They've got some very strong fixtures in here, and even with those, I still would be backing Son. He's very much a player who's played on the counter-attack, breaking the lines, scoring against the run of play for the past few seasons. We've seen it so far this year as well. When the tougher fixtures have arrived, Son has still managed to get himself amongst the goals. Chelsea, Wolves, Aston Villa, City, West Ham, Newcastle and Nottingham Forest. I wouldn't even be personally worried about the City game. Has a great record at the Etihad as well. Him and Harry Kane had some very happy days at the Etihad as well. Definitely getting some clean sheet points. No, not getting clean sheet points. They're getting goals and assists. What the hell am I chatting? But yeah, definitely a fixture that I wouldn't be too worried about. City will obviously play a high line. I think that'll be a game where Son will actually do quite well as well. And to be honest, him in that 9 position, it just makes really like smart sense, to be honest. I prefer him over Maddison as well. If we can find out who the Spurs penalty taker is as well, that would help us definitely kind of irk towards one or two of the players to potentially go for. But I think Son, that Chelsea fixture, it does look a little bit tough on paper, but Chelsea again seem to be a mess all over the place. Spurs very organised, very good attacking at home as well. It's the return of Pochettino as well, so they'll want to get a positive result against him, kind of show why he left and what they've been able to achieve since that time period. So definitely a Son, a player I would be looking to keep, even though the fixtures are a little bit difficult. I think he will still produce quite a lot of goals and assists over the next few game weeks. Moving on to a man I do feel is starting to irk himself into the word essential. We spoke about Liverpool's good fixtures with Tsimikas. Luton away, arguably potentially could captain Salah as well if you wanted to go that way this week. I thought against Nottingham Forest he was super impressive. Unlucky to only come away with one goal. A lot of the time he was the assister of the assist. You know, really good in the build-up, creating plenty of opportunities, good data as well over the past few weeks, been putting in some very impressive performances and scores in FPL, so definitely a player I would be looking to have in my team, and like I said, does offer himself as an alternative captain. You know, you're looking around the game weeks, what game weeks are they? 14 and 15 are probably the ones that I would be looking for. They've got Fulham and Sheffield United, whereas City have Tottenham and Aston Villa, so those 2 weeks there, absolutely crucial, I'd argue, to have Mohamed Salah in for those, as he will be your captain for those game weeks. Moving on to our final midfielder, and it is Bukayo Saka. An assist for him back amongst the attacking returns, and some really smart fixtures coming up for Arsenal. That Burnley one I'm looking at, they're really struggling to adapt to the Premier League, especially defensively, yet to keep a clean sheet. You would imagine a player like Saka would do extremely well there. Wolves and Luton as well. Luton again, arguably in that game week 15 period where City do have a difficult fixture, so maybe Saka could lend himself as a potential captaincy shout in that game week as well. I think for me personally, he is the key man for Arsenal, with Odegaard potentially having a little bit of an injury issue at the moment as well. Does maybe mean that Saka is back on penalties for the next few weeks as well, which is always a handy little asset to have in the game, and one that I absolutely adore abusing the absolute shit out of. I'm not going to lie, it's something I always go for. But let's move on to our two forwards. We're going to start off with Erling Haaland. Bournemouth at home, you're going to be captaining this man. A lot of the doubters were proven wrong this weekend with 2 goals and an assist against Manchester United. He's back in form, back in confidence as well, and some really difficult fixtures coming up for City, but you can still see him absolutely slapping it. And I argue really difficult fixtures. I'm looking at it again. You know, Bournemouth at home, great fixture. Chelsea away, they're not really confident, especially at home. You know, Brentford have had more wins in 2023 at Stamford Bridge than Chelsea have, so that kind of alludes the situation that they're in at the moment. You also look at that Liverpool game, I think that one could go either way. Tottenham and Villa, again, very difficult fixtures for City coming up, but then Luton and Crystal Palace after that. I still think I would be looking to hold Erling Haaland, to be honest. Really, you know, excellent performance against Manchester United. I think he proved a lot of the people who went wrong and went against him massively why he is one of the most owned players in the game. He's so clinical in front of goal. I think that performance will give him a nice boost, a nice edge, and get himself back fully fit and firing as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Haaland over the next few weeks. Moving on to our final forward, and it is Ollie Watkins, the man who accumulated the most expected chances involved, goals involved, absolutely everything this man was creating at the weekend, but still came away with 2 points. Classic FPL. There's still some very positive fixtures coming up for Aston Villa, like I alluded to with Matty Cash. Nottingham Forest, Fulham, Tottenham and Bournemouth. Forest at the moment look a little bit of a mess. Not really going well for them so far. Steve Cooper's definitely got to do some work to get the best out of that side. And you could see, you know, a rampant Villa side absolutely decimate Forest as well at the City ground. And I think Watkins for the next 4 weeks would be a player I would be happy to have in my team. I feel even potentially confident in saying this, maybe holding him for 15 and 16. I know Liverpool have positive fixtures, so my thought would potentially be move to Darwin as a short-term punt with Fulham, Sheffield United and Crystal Palace if you wanted to do that, and then maybe buy back into Watkins. But I think He is arguably one of the best strikers in the game at the moment, and I don't think anyone is even getting close to the ability that he's showing and that what Villa are showing as well. Some difficult fixtures, like I said, coming up around game week 15, game week 16, but for the short term, I definitely think I would be looking to include him. Right, let's have a quick run through of the bench before we finish up today's video. We spoke about Turner, Charlie Taylor on here at 3.9 million, absolute GOAT this week for me, scored his first goal in 198 Burnley games, so absolute legend. I would not be expecting that from him every single week though, so he's just there as a nice 3.9 million defender. Archer as a forward as well at 4.5, again just there to just fill the bench. And then Anthony Gordon does complete our side. I would have ideally liked Pedro Neto with them having Sheffield United. I know a few people have potentially suggested Hwang, but I think without Neto, it does make him a little bit less of a kind of viable option for me as well. And then if Pedro Neto is only out for 1 to 2 weeks, I would arguably want him more than having Hwang in my side. So I think Anthony Gordon, the fixtures for Newcastle, a little bit difficult, but they got Bournemouth next week, they got Everton, they got Fulham kind of sprinkled in the next 5 to 6 as well. Definitely positive fixtures where I would like to play Anthony Gordon if I did go for this team myself. But that was my Game Week 11 wildcard. Let me know what you think of it down in the comment section below. And if you've got any questions about your team, get them in as well, as I will try to answer as many as possible. But thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and enjoy the rest of your week.